What's going on, everybody? Jesse here for Flyers App, along with Anthony Verasso, as always, doing an early Super Bowl morning edition of Flyers Alley. Got a special guest here, former Philadelphia Flyers goaltender, Michael Leighton. Michael, how you doing, brother?
Doing well.
So thanks so much for coming on, man. We kind of a weird way we got you on here. We had I interviewed one of your students on center ice. Awesome kid. Can you tell me a little bit about him? How'd you end up hooking up with him?
Well, just when I retired, I started training goalies locally here, and there was a group of kids that were kind of passed on to me by another goalie coach that was moving out of town. And Ethan was kind of just starting out, like he was pretty young at that time. And, I worked with him for 3 or 4 years, and obviously he's doing great, and he's at where he's at now. And just a really hardworking kid. He's a good kid, Ethan.
Yeah, very enthusiastic. Yeah. He told me we were, I think we were live, and he was like, "Yeah, Jesse, so you do the Flyers show?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "I think you might be interested in one of my goalie coaches." I'm like, "Yeah, who is it?" And he said, "Michael Leighton." I was like, "Dude, let's figure that out real quick. Let's figure that out."
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy story with him. He didn't, like he said to you guys, I think he didn't start playing goalie till he was 12 or 13 years old. So he started late, but what I really liked about him is he was a very good skater. And I think that's somewhat of a lost art with goalies nowadays. So his edge work was great, and he could skate and move around the net really well. So I just kind of built off that and kept working on that. And like I said, he's doing great over there right now. And he left his family and friends to go play where he is now. And, so far it's worked out for him. He's playing great.
Is Mike, is coaching something you've always wanted to get into?
Yeah, I've always, ever since I was, I think 13, 14 years old, I worked for a local guy in Sarnia, and I did a bunch of goalie schools and helped out. And it's kind of always been in my blood, and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy working with younger kids, and I just kind of help them develop. And, once I retired, I started my own business and started doing that, locally here, and just small group stuff, nothing, with 30, 40 kids on the ice. I just have 4 kids max on the ice, and really get to, work with the kids more one-on-one stuff. And then the Spitfires gave me a shout, and I started working for the Windsor Spitfires now.
That's wild. You're I gotta ask, right off the bat, like we were talking backstage. So I'm up in the press box with the Flyers. The game has changed completely. What are your thoughts on the game when you were drafted to when you retired to a little bit of overseas to what the game's like nowadays? What do you like it? Do you like what it used to be? Do you like how it is now? What's your opinion on today's game? And do you pay attention to the Flyers at all?
Yeah, I don't get to watch the NHL as much as I want to. Obviously, I'm in Windsor, Ontario, LaSalle, Ontario. So it's with the Spitfires and my own kids, it's tough to sit down and watch an NHL game. So I don't get to watch too much, but highlights here and there. So I do follow them. Going back to the game changing, I think when I first started out, every team had the top 2 lines that were very skilled. Third line was more of a hardworking, some skill. Fourth line was just a grinding fighters kind of mentality. And, now that I'm working with the Windsor Spitfires, I see these young kids, 16 to 19-year-olds come in and play for us. And the skill level of these kids is phenomenal. Like I see kids at 16, 17 years old that have more skill than some of the players, when I first started in 2002 in the NHL. Like the skill, these kids start when they're 6 years old training, with their hands, and, the Connor Bedard, Betsy, like toe drag release and stuff, right? These kids are phenomenal coming in, and you see them moving up. And once they get in their 20s and they get to the NHL, they're doing things that no one could do when, back in 2003 when I first started. So the game's changed for me. It's just the skill of these players, and the speed and the skating has really advanced for these kids.
Would you there was one question I was asking a couple people last time I was in the press box was, do you think that your game, your style of goalie and play would have adapted better to when you played, or do you think you'd be better nowadays?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Obviously, I played 18 years pro, so I had to adapt, and I think that's what I was good at. The game did change, but I did adapt my game throughout my 18-year career. I went from more of a stand-up reacting guy into a blocking Giguère style a little bit for a few years, and then I kind of mixed them both together. But like I said, it's really the speed of the game and the speed of the puck. The puck moves a lot faster now. And some of these young goalies coming in are very quick and can move their feet a lot faster probably than I could. So I'm not saying I'd be behind. I'd be more of a smarter positional goalie at this time, still trying to react. But some of these kids are very athletic and can move around the net really well now.
So it sounds like you had 3 different style of goalie the type of way you play net throughout your 18-year career. How do you confidently go about changing up your style? Because everything with goaltending is confidence, and it's like we all want to fall back into our habits when the new thing isn't working. So how did you stay so determined and so disciplined to change your style?
Well, a lot of it's just in practice, right? Trying new things. Obviously, you have different goalie coaches. I had a lot of goalie coaches over my career, and I kind of go to one team and they would say, okay, this is what we have to do. And I would learn how to do that. I would go to another one and just kind of mold it all together into my game. But the game it's always changing. So you have to change with the game. And like you said, it's sometimes hard confidence wise. I went to Anaheim and, where Giguère was, Francois Allaire was my goalie coach. So I went from a total reacting goalie into he wanted me to be a blocking goalie. So that was tough. The first 4 or 5 days in training camp, I'm standing deeper in my net, just getting lit up by all the guys in Anaheim. And I'm looking at him like, this is training camp. He's like, oh, don't worry. Just keep stick with it. And I went to the AHL and, the first 2 or 3 weeks, things weren't going good. And then all of a sudden it started clicking. And next thing you know, I'm getting called up to Anaheim and get picked off waivers and bang, bang, bang. So, I ended up working out, and then I took that style and kind of molded that into, positional and reaction goalie and made more of a hybrid.
So what were your thoughts about coming to Philadelphia?
Oh, I came there early in my career. I came there that year, actually. I got picked off re-entry waivers by Nashville. And I was there for a while, and then Thomas Volkun broke his thumb, so he just came back. So they sent me down, and I got picked up by Philly. I was there for about 3 weeks, and at the trade deadline, they sent me down, and I got picked up by Montreal. So I got picked up by a few teams that year. And in 2010, I was in Carolina. Cam Ward got hurt, and they brought in Manny Legacy. So I was there, and then when Ward got back, I was kind of the odd man out. So they put me on waivers. Nobody wanted me. And I think it was Ray Emery got hurt, had a hip issue.
Yeah.
So my agent called Philly and just said, hey, if you want to pick up Mike and he'll back up for you for a bit. And, when you're done with him, he'll go to the minors and be a good sport. You just need somewhere to play. So Holmgren was like, yeah, sure. Sounds good. So they put me on re-entry waivers, and boom, I got picked up and made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So pretty good. End up being pretty good.
I would say so. I mean, that was a pretty eventful 2010 season for you, because was it early on that you got claimed by Philly? Because I remember I'm in Boston, and my buddies all had tickets. We went to a game early that season in October against you guys, and it was like an ass kicking. Like Cam Ward started, I believe, but I remember you came in, and I remember being like, "What goalie wears 49?" Fast forward, here you are in the Winter Classic back in Boston. So was it early on that Philly claimed you? Because I honestly forget. And then if you can just talk about that Winter Classic experience.
Yeah, it was, I think it was early December, first week of December, I got picked up. I went in, I backed up a couple games, and then Brian Boucher ended up getting hit on the finger and broke his finger. And I went in, I played, I think 3 or 4 games before the Winter Classic, and I think I won all 3 or 4 of them. And Laviolette brought me in his office and just said, hey, you're playing great, and you've earned the start, for the Winter Classic. So he told me that the day before. So that was just a shock to me. I was just hoping to go, right, and be on the bench or even in the stands. So Amazing experience. Boston was great. Obviously, losing that game put a little damper on it. But just the whole experience, the way they treated us, and the fans and the crowd, it was just all around great experience for me. Obviously, that was one of the biggest showcases and biggest events I've played in.
Jesse, let me just jump in because I have one quick follow up with that Winter Classic. What were the sight lines like? Because you were standing on your head the whole game, and then I think it was like Marco Sturm shot one from the red line that like just went through your arm, but like trickled by the post. Like it was crazy. So if you could just talk about the different angles that you would see.
Well, when you speak of angles, that I was just making sure I had good angles, so it got by me, but I knew that was going to happen. No, you know what? The weather was perfect. The lighting was actually pretty good. The ice was great. Honestly, I don't think we could ask for a better night. Obviously, I wouldn't want that to squeak by me and stop on the goal line. But, like I said, the night was perfect except for the loss.
Need the offense to help you. It wasn't on you.
Oh, yeah. Got to blame the defense on that one.
Just to talk about the locker room during that year. You got, Jeff Carter, Mike Richards, Riley Cote, some other guy, Scotty Upshaw. That sounds like a pretty active locker room. Is there any good stories you could tell us that, maybe PG, maybe not PG? It's not a kid's show, but anything? Anything?
Not really stories. We just had a great locker room that there was a couple quiet guys, and then we had, the Scotty Hartnells, Chris Prongers, the guys that like to mess around and have fun. And so that's what made it really interesting with our group is, you had that quiet group, but then you also had the guys always picking on the quiet guys, and the media was always honest. So, you got Pronger every day saying something funny to the media guys. And in the locker room, we were pretty tight. I remember we were doing some charity event, I think at the Wachovia Center, and almost full building, and they were doing a TV timeout or something, and Scott Hartnell went to center ice and started doing the Hulk Hogan, trying to get everybody riled up. And so that's just kind of guy he was, like the whole crowd's silent, and Scotty goes out there and starts doing that to get him going. So just a good group of guys. I enjoyed being in that locker room for sure.
What was Chris Pronger like? Like obviously the big polarizing figure, but as you said, would kind of take some of the heat towards the locker room and deflect it and make it kind of put some pressure on him with the media, because as you said, the media was really out to disrupt that locker room for some reason that year.
Sarcasm. That's how I can describe him. He seemed like he was being a dick all the time, but he was just trying to be funny. And I think some people hated it. Some people loved it. But there was all these talks about how we didn't get along, and there was some tension between some players, and that was all BS. We all got along and we all had fun, and obviously making as far as we did was just, it shows that if there's any animosity in the room, that wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? Like we all had each other's backs, and we were all in it together. So it turned out to be a great year, obviously.
So you end up in Philly. Who, kind of like a quick hit questions here. Where was your spot to go in Philly? Spot to go out to eat? Spot to go hang out? Who are you hanging out with?
I lived in Voorhees. I had my family with me, so it wasn't like I was hanging out downtown or anything. But Del Frisco's, I became good friends with Dr. William Myers there, so we'd go once in a while to Del Frisco's and get a good steak there. That was kind of my restaurant to eat, but it's not that it's embarrassing, but I was an Olive Garden guy. I always loved chicken parm, breadsticks, and salad at Olive Garden. That was probably my go-to.
Can't go wrong with a little Italian dishes.
No.
That season, 2010, you come in against Boston. I think it was game 5, right? That's when Boucher gets hurt, but it was middle of the game. You come in cold, continue the shutout. Obviously have a stellar game 6, game 7, you guys win. What was it like coming off the bench in the middle of the game and having to, just keep up that shutout going?
The first 2 minutes of that, when I went in, I think it was second period I went in, that was probably the most nervous I've ever been in a game. I had a high ankle sprain, I think, first week of March. So I didn't play I was told my season was done. The doctor said you have a tear in 3 spots in your ankle, like your season's done. So we made playoffs on a shootout against New York. We go by New Jersey first round, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I got steroid shot, I got PRP down in my ankle, and it's starting to feel a little better. I get on the ice, working with Jeff Reese a little bit, and then we get in the second round, and I start pushing it a little bit more. So that was the first game I was actually on the bench, backing up again. So I jump on the bench, just happy to be there, and all of a sudden, bang, Bush goes down. It's like, oh man, okay. So the first 2 minutes, the team did great, just keeping the puck away from me to kind of get my feet under me. And once I settled down a little bit and got a few shots, I was good, and obviously it turned out well there too.
And then Game 7, the Bruins go up 3-0 quick. Like, what are you thinking to yourself before Labby calls the timeout?
Obviously, it's pretty deflating. You're all pumped to get to that situation, but still, even when I was going into that game, there wasn't too much pressure we felt that was on us. The pressure was all on them to close that series up, and for us to even to battle back and to get into Game 7 was pretty amazing. So, it was definitely disheartening when you're sitting there and you get in Game 7, you're all pumped up, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 you're down 3-0, and you're like, ah. But as a goalie, you kind of, every goal that goes in, you just kind of refocus and regroup and not worry about, what the outcome's going to be. You just got to play your best and make that next save. And Labby called the timeout. He walked down the bench and said, Leighton, we're good. You're good. You're good. And then he told the guys, let's just get the next goal. I think it was near the end of the first, or 8 minutes left or something. He said, let's just get 1 goal before the end of the period. And we did. And I don't know if we got 1 or 2, might have just got 1, but that kind of settled us in once we got that goal, and then we rolled into the second period, and we were kind of just going from there.
I mean, there was a play, I think, in that second period where, like, the replay for a split second showed, like, you guys getting the lead, but they couldn't really prove the puck went over the line over Tuca and stuff like that. But didn't you have, like, 2 shutouts against Montreal the following series? Like, you guys just steamrolled them, but especially you. Like, you really solidified that crease in that round.
Yeah, I got 3. Actually, there's only I think there's only 2 or 3 goalies in the semifinals that got 3 shutouts. So that was pretty good. We played great defensive hockey. We shut them down. We knew they were going to be tough. I think they beat Washington and Pittsburgh, I believe, before they got to us. So we went into that series, not taking them lightly. And the defense core was great that series. And obviously we scored some huge goals, and guys really stepped up, and it seemed like we really steamrolled them, but they were a good team. So we played really well that series.
Laviolette, the real deal. Well, probably one of my favorite coaches that coached the Flyers. I personally would love Rick Tocchet to come and do that, but now he's doing this thing in Vancouver. What was it like being coached by Laviolette? Was he a stand-up guy, or is it pretty much?
Yeah, I had him a little bit in Carolina, so I knew him before I got there. Very good guy, good motivator. That's what I liked about him. He's always a very good talker and could get the boys going, with a quick little speech. So he had a good core of coaches there, and the whole staff was great in Philly. And, Labby's obviously been around a while, and he won a Stanley Cup in Carolina. So he knows what he's doing, and he did a great job for us. And, obviously after we left, the team got shuffled around, and he moved on, but he went into Nashville, kind of turned that team around too. He did a great job there, and now he's in Wash. So has a chance for a Stanley Cup again this year. So just a good guy and good coach for sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Jesse, because I'm gonna write down a note real quick.
Oh, okay. We talked brief about overseas. How was hockey over playing overseas?
It was different. I've never been over to Europe or traveled that far. So for me to fly over to the Ukraine and play in Donetsk was a new experience for me. My wife and kids stayed back home, which was really, really hard for me to be away. But the hockey part was just different. It's the big ice surface. It's a lot of skill over there, but they play different systems and different styles. So I adapted really well over there. I don't know why. I was just very patient and felt there was actually more time for me to move around because the big ice surface, the guys weren't in tight, moving the puck close to me as much. So I enjoyed, playing over there. And like I said, there was a lot of skill over there. And, Dadovich was one of the players on my team who was kind of a just above average player in that league when I played with him. And now he's doing great things in the NHL. So you see how much skill is over there. But just the style of play is just different. It's not like a system style. It's just more of a free range, guys just going around and showing their skill. They'll have an open net, but then decide to do a spinorama back pass to someone backdoor and try to score, which is great for me. If I gave him an open net and he didn't shoot it and the guy misses the net backdoor, that's great. So just different hockey.
Is that something, the way you adapted to that league, what you touched upon earlier, where, when you're in Anaheim, you got to be more of a reactionary goalie. And it sounds like with you, you're like, you know what, whatever style you want me to play, I'm going to do it. Like, I think that's a great attribute you have.
Yeah. And I think that's why I played 18 years pro. It's really hard to just play your style, for more than 3 to 5 years, because the game is changing constantly. So if you just stick to your style, you might not last very long in the league for sure.
So probably should have asked this question at the beginning of the interview. Growing up as a kid, who's your favorite player, and who do you model your game after?
Well, I grew up a Maple Leaf fan, just being close to Toronto. And you guys don't delete this podcast after me saying that. But Curtis Joseph was I was a big fan of his, and I think Felix Potvin was my favorite goalie. Just the style, the way he played. So I always kind of wanted to be like him. And a funny story: after I finished 2010, I used to go train in Sherbrooke, Quebec, with Stefan Waite, my goalie coach from Chicago way back in the day. And I was on the ice, and I look over and I see Felix Potvin talking to Stefan. So I just went over there. I took my glove off and I said, "Hey, I need to shake your hand. I'm Michael Leighton. Big fan of yours growing up. Just very nice to meet you. I just had to shake your hand." And I skated away. So after practice, I get off the ice. I'm in the locker room, and Stefan says, "Hey, Felix wants to see you in the hallway." So I went out in the hallway, and he has his 2 kids with him and says, "Hey, it's funny how you said, you were a big fan of mine growing up. My kids were watching you in the Stanley Cup finals and all through the playoffs, and they were a big fan of yours. Can you sign a card for them?" And they had a card of mine. So kind of came around full circle, but great guy, and just pretty cool story to meet someone like that.
That's awesome.
That's hockey, man, right? Like, it's just like you said, it comes full circle. Hockey, you can meet so many great people. Your career, obviously, you said 18 pro seasons, shutout record in the AHL, right? That's the one you have.
Yeah.
Talk about your time down there, and obviously that great record that you still hold.
Well, you know what? A lot of people think the AHL is an easy league. It's not. Every time I got sent down or started in the AHL, I always took that as a challenge for me. And I kind of always said to myself, if I just go down there and either pout or just whatever, I'm in the AHL, I'm not going to make I wouldn't make it anywhere, right? And if I wanted to get back to the NHL, I had to be the best goalie in the AHL. So that was the attitude I took right from day one. Had a great rookie season, made the All-Star team. And like I said, every time I got sent down, it was just an attitude of, okay, I need to get back to the NHL. And I really worked at my game down there. And I played with a lot of good players and a lot of good coaches. And, I was in Rockford, and I'm a stats guy, but I don't really follow like how many I had over my career. And someone came out to me one time and said, "Hey, you're 5 away from the record for shutouts in the AHL." And, okay. And then I got back-to-back shutouts, and then I'm getting a bit closer, right? So then I started getting my mind a little bit. But yeah, just beating that, Johnny Bauer was the record holder. So after I beat it, Johnny Bauer actually called me on the phone and talked to me for about 15, 20 minutes. Great guy. So yeah, pretty cool experience. And I was in Rockford at the time. So Rockford had a great ceremony for me, and the guys gave me a nice helmet signed by all the players, gold helmet and a case. So a lot of cool stuff, and just a great experience and cool record to hold for sure.
The AHL is literally known, well, us at our network, as the Anything Happens League. Anybody that says that the AHL is an easy league to be in, obviously doesn't watch it and doesn't know anything about it, because some of the stuff that still happens down there, we're seeing some brawls still happen now. They have put some rules on it. I think that you can only fight like 10 times a year or something like that. Have you ever been in one goalie fight? You ever been asked to?
Yeah, I fought one in the OHL in playoffs. So we had kind of a line brawl. And then AHL, I fought Cam Ward in a big brawl.
Oh,
And I fought Jimmy Howard in a line brawl. So I got in a few. I was on the bench for a few, obviously. But in Norfolk, Virginia, we had my first couple of years. We had some tough guys. We had Sean Thornton, Aaron Downey, Ruben Nadur, Ty Jones. So we had 5 to 6 guys that could beat up anyone in the league at any time. So we had a couple just full out. We started all 5 of those guys, and they started their 5 tough guys and big brawls. But I was 19, 20 years old and at that time, so I kind of didn't go down fighting a 30-year-old at the time. But yeah, I got in a couple tussles. It was fun at the time.
Mike, what are some of the goalies that were picking your brain and down in the AHL, and some of the goalies that you really took pride in? Like, hey, you know what? Let me show you the ropes, kind of a thing.
Nedeljkovic in Detroit, and I had Connor Ingram, who's doing great now. So those were 2 young guys I signed. I was older. I think I was like 35, 37. I signed in the AHL to be like a third goalie / mentor kind of guy. And, I had Jocelyn Thibault my first year in the NHL, was my starting goalie. And that was one guy I really looked at and said, okay, this is what I want to do when I get older. I want to be that mentor to some young kid. So I take those guys out for dinner once in a while. Christian Jarry, DeSmith, those guys in Pittsburgh too. Like just to talk to these kids and see where they're at, because coming from junior hockey or coming from college into pro in the AHL, it's tough, and you have to explain to these kids that like you said, the AHL is not an easy league. I've seen some amazing goalies, even some NHL guys, go down to the AHL and struggle, and then they go back to the NHL and they're fine. So it's something you just got to mentally prepare for and really work at your game, and just not focus too much on how the game's going for you, and as much as just working on your game to get to the next level. And then obviously it'll all kind of even itself out at the end.
I got one more. I know you're under a time constraint. My kids are going wild in the background. Props to my wife for keeping the animal farm down. If 1998 Michael Leighton could give 2019 Michael Leighton any advice, what would it be?
2019, so like my last year.
Your first year playing.
Last year,
yeah, your last year.
I would say for me, my first 5 years pro, I think I could have did a better job working harder in practice. That was one thing I learned kind of middle to later in my career, that the harder you work in practice, it just kind of carries over. You'll definitely improve more. I was on the ice to practice, but just didn't have much purpose to it. And off ice, just taking care of your body all the time. But practice was a huge thing. Later in my career, when my body was breaking down, I finally realized, like, oh, geez, I gotta, really maintain my body. But practice was a huge thing, and always have fun. It's, again, you don't want to just jump on the ice to practice just to be out there. You're out there to compete with your teammates, to have fun, to make each other better. And that's one thing. When I was younger, I was just there to be there, and I was happy to be there. Where later in my career, I was struggling to stay there. And I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be at the top. So I worked even harder, and I got the results pretty quick.
Mike, final question for me, man. Real quick, just your thoughts on Carter Hart, the goalie now with Philly. Had some ups and downs so far in his career. He's looked pretty good last couple games. Inconsistency, in my opinion, has been like his biggest thing. But just thoughts on him now, and do you think he can be the guy in the future for this team as they try to rebuild?
Oh, he can definitely be the guy for the future. He's still young. I know people don't say that anymore about him, but as a goaltender, he's very young still. He might be smaller in size, but he plays the game really well. Great skater. You could just see how elite he is when he moves around the net. And for me, that's a big thing. He's quick. He's got all the right tools. It's just, you have good games and bad games, and obviously just eliminating the bad games as much as you can. And if you get a tough goal scored on you, just erasing that and starting over, like I said earlier. But he definitely has the talent, and I wish him all the best. He's doing great.
With that being said, Mike, thanks so much for coming on. We definitely have to have you on again. Make sure everyone goes and watches this. You all know where to watch it, and we'll be on at 1:30. Also, go Birds. I don't know if you're an Eagles fan, but
I am today.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that being said, we'll be on at 1:30. Thanks again, Mike, for coming on. I want to talk to you again.
Thanks for having us, guys.